so much. Again, it is just an absolute honor to be here, to be speaking with all these amazing women. And I'm just blessed to be able to share my story. So at 9 years old, I was in my dad's kitchen, pressing a knife to my wrist, contemplating taking my own life. I had dealt with abandonment and depression and feelings I was just too young to be able to figure out. Thank God I was too scared to go through with the attempt. Now, fast forward a few years later, at 16 years old, I had a turbulent home life. So I was living with my boyfriend and I ended up getting pregnant. Now, during this time, he was dealing with some sort of issues in terms of being in and out of the correctional facilities and in and out of jail. And us being under 18, they decided to send him across the country to live with his mother. And I was living with him at the time. So he leaves, I'm pregnant, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go. And again, I'm feeling abandoned. So I spent a few months trying to figure it out, and having nowhere to go and not able to go back home unless I had an abortion, I finally decided to go ahead and go through with it. And I realized, it sunk me into the deepest depression of my life. Because regardless of my boyfriend having to move, regardless of what my parents said, I knew at the end of the day, the decision to have an abortion was my own, and one that I deeply regretted, and one that was going to take me a very, very long time to forgive myself for. So about a year after that, I was at home and crying and sad and depressed, and I look around and I find a bottle of sleeping pills, and I dump the rest of them out of my hand, and I take the pills, just crying and tears streaming down my face. And I take the rest of the pills and I lay down just ready for it to be over. And not even that I wanted to die, but that I couldn't imagine continuing to live in the type of pain that I was in and not knowing how to change it. And that suicide attempt landed me in the hospital, in the emergency room, and then in a mental institution for a week. And when I came out, I promised myself, I said, okay, this didn't work. I would never try to do that again. But it didn't mean that there was some magic fix to my life. I still didn't know how to get myself from where I was to where I wanted to be. I felt it in my spirit that God had more for me, that there was more to my story than the sadness and the depression and the victimhood that I didn't even realize I was in at the time. So the next few years were tough. I was living on the streets. I was sleeping on buses overnight. I would sometimes sleep in cafes or coffee shops. I would sleep inside of Barnes & Noble. I always have loved to read. And that went on for about a year. And then when I was 18, I received some money and I was able to purchase a car that I was able to sleep in. Now, fast forward, okay, a few years later, I'm 20 years old. I have a new boyfriend. I'm in a relationship and I get pregnant. This is where my life turned around for the better. I refused to bring a child into what I had gone through. Growing up, my mom lived in motels, and I refused to bring my daughter into the same situation. I refused to bring her into a life of uncertainty where she didn't know if a parent loved her, where she didn't know if she was cherished, where she would struggle with self-esteem because she wasn't even sure that she mattered. So I knew I was going to turn my life around, but I still wasn't sure how to do it. So I read this book that literally changed my life. I realized that I had the choice. I had the choice to change my life. Only I could do it for me. And the first thing that I realized is that pain is the pathway to your purpose. So often we spend our lives trying to avoid pain. Some people don't get in relationships because they're scared of being hurt. You don't go out for a job interview or put yourself out there because you're scared of rejection. When the reality is a little bit of pain comes with life either way. So you can either live the pain of sitting back, scared to even try, scared to live your life, or you can go out there and you can celebrate the wins. You can take on the challenges, and you can choose to turn the pain into a catalyst for your purpose. Pain is the preparation for your future. I learned that I could not be a victim. I learned that I had to overcome what I had been through. So maybe I didn't have the relationship with my mother that I wanted. She wasn't there the way I wanted her to be. I was raised primarily by my father, but you know what? I could choose to take from that, to learn from that, and be the mother that I wanted growing up. So I want to ask you, do you let the pain scare you, or do you learn, or are you choosing to overcome it? Are you sitting back scared to play full out in life? Or are you deciding that I'm going to go out there and either I'm going to win or I'm going to learn from my lessons and I'm still winning, right? Because it's all about your mentality. It's all about your perspective. The second thing that I really, really realized is success is impossible without accountability. You can spend your life blaming the people around you. And the reality is that people do the best that they can do at the time with what they have. So you can be mad at your parents, you can be mad at the teacher, you can be mad at racism, you can be mad at whatever you want to, whatever outside circumstances. But at the end of the day, if you want to elevate your life, it's going to be up to you. Nobody else can do it for you. So I want to ask you, how are you showing up? How are you showing up in your relationships? How are you showing up with your children, with your spouse? How are you showing up at work? How are you showing up every day to your life, understanding that this is the only one that we have right now? And if you want it to be a masterpiece, it's up to you to make that happen. Where are you not showing up fully? You know, there have been times where I had to sit and think and realize at times I was closed off. I was scared of being hurt, scared of being abandoned, and not showing up fully in my relationship with my husband. And in turn, we were missing out on the depth and the connection that we could have had. So in realizing that, I took the active steps to change the way that I am, to change how I'm showing up daily. At the end of the day, it's up to you. Now, the third lesson that I learned was you have to live a life of passion and purpose. This life is too short to live anything average. We don't want average relationships. We don't want average friendships, and we definitely don't want an average career. We want to make sure that when we're showing up every day, that we're having an impact on other people, because we're going to impact people no matter what. We only get to choose how we impact them. Are we leaving the spaces that we touch better than when we got there? Are we filling up our cup so that we can overflow and pour into other people? And that brings me to a question that someone asked me once, and it just changed the course of my life. What would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? That's a deep one, because so often we are too logical. We think about what makes sense. Okay, I could work this job I don't really like, but I make decent money and it's a guaranteed, so let me do it. Instead of, oh my God, this is my passion. Like, I'd love to scuba dive. Not me personally, but I'm giving an example. You could say, I'd love to scuba dive, but that makes no sense. My parents want me to be a doctor. I've been on the path to be a doctor, which is a phenomenal, one of the most well-respected careers you could be in. But it's not what speaks to my heart. It's not what I love. And so we talk ourselves out of the seeds that God plants in our spirit and in our life. When the reality is, if you follow your passion, you can go and open your own scuba diving school. You can travel the world and be an instructor. You can take anything that you love and you can turn it into the best piece of your life. So ask yourself, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? Because if your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough. If you think about what you have planned for your life and you feel comfortable, you don't get that little tinge in your stomach, that means that you need to think again, that you need to step outside of the box, that you need to know that you are capable of absolutely anything that you put your mind to. Are you living the life that others have carved out for you? Are you following your own dreams? And if you are not following your dreams, what steps can you take today to start to put that into action? Can you look at a school that you want to enroll in? Can you create a Facebook page for a new business? Can you sit down in a room and take out your notebook and your pen and just start to jot down your ideas, to touch into your intuition and your creativity and to let it flow? What seeds have God planted in you that you're too scared to go after? When I shifted my mindset and my perspective, my entire world changed. For one, me and my mother are so incredibly close now. I was able to forgive what she wasn't able to do, appreciate what she was able to do, and to create a bond that has lasted us for the last several decades. But even more than that, I went from, like I said, being homeless and sleeping on buses and trying to make sure that when I walked outside, you couldn't tell, going to my dad's house and taking a shower just to make sure that when I come outside, that I would not be ashamed of what I looked like and who I was. And when I shifted my mindset and shifted my perspective and decided to hold myself accountable, my world changed. At 21, I was sleeping on a bus. Well, I'm sorry, I had my daughter at 21. At 20, I was sleeping on buses. By 25, I had opened my own hair salon and I was making six figures. And it's not about the money, but it's about the fact that I got to show up every single day doing something that I enjoyed to do, connecting with other women, talking to other women, transforming people externally while having conversations that empowered both of us internally. With that, I joined a nonprofit, Haircuts with Heart, and we started going into the community. And we would set up literally outside with our little clippers and a generator, and we would cut homeless men and women. We started going into shelters. We started going into, even to the local hospital. They do a prom every year for children that are suffering from chronic and terminal illnesses. And we showed up every single day trying to give back and to pour into other people. So that's the last thing that I really want to leave you with. Not only make sure that you're following your passion and your purpose, but then making sure that you're pouring into other people, because your vision can never be just about you. It always has to have an impact on the people around you. If I could turn my life around, if I could live a life that I am wildly obsessed with, you can do it too.